All right, so let's flip back to where we were at on page 177. And let's talk a little bit about this thing called an MLS. MLS is short for Multiple Listing Service. It is nothing more than a database of properties that are for sale. Every local system or every local, and I like the word union, has their own MLS system, all right? The database is nothing more than, and that's the programming little cylinder that means database, that sits on the computer system, all right? That gets loaded, that MLS gets loaded by the listing agent. You have created agency with this seller by getting them to sign the listing agent, see? So now you got to capture all of their property information, room measurements, school district, taxes, all of that stuff that you see, and you load it onto our database in Indianapolis, and that is where the MLS resides. Now, just for fun, the Indianapolis MLS, we call the BLC. We gave it a name. It stands for Broker Listing Cooperative. You don't need to know that for the exam, but we don't call it MLS here. MLS is a generic term meaning the multiple listing service. Zillow's an MLS, all right? We call it the Broker Listing Cooperative. You guys know what a cooperative? We all own the data. It's like a farm co-op and things like that. So that's why we call it. But it's still an MLS. And here's how this works. Now, I've got agency with my seller. I capture all the data. I put it on the MLS. And what happens is a buyer now gets an agent to help them find properties. And they go out and they scour the MLS. That's an eyeball. All right? And based on whatever the buyer tells his agent, he searches the MLS, and what he does is he finds 4 or 5 MLS sheets and says, you know, here's 5 properties that I found that meet everything you've told me you wanted. Let's schedule a viewing. So we're not going to get into that. They schedule a viewing, they go look, they find one they like. He then writes an offer over to this side of the table, and we become cooperating brokers. Cooperating brokers. Remember on this MLS sheet, down here at the bottom is where that BAC is, where it says 3%. That tells the selling agent how much you're going to get paid, 3%. It could say a flat fee. It could say I'm paying you $1,000. Theoretically, it doesn't matter because the loyalty of the client lies above you. You would show him all 5, and he says, I want to go see that one. That's the one that paid just $1,000. Oh, well, because their betterment lies for you. Now, before you guys started and came in today, we had a funny discussion, and here's where I always talk about it. Remember the loyalty of the client. Their interests lie above yours. Typically, you get paid a percentage that's listed on the MLS sheet called the BAC, Buyer's Agent Commission. It's 3%. It's 3% of the selling final price, right? Think about the job that you guys are doing. You are actively negotiating yourself a lower paycheck. Right? Because it's listed at 100 grand. Your client comes in and you tell them, hey man, I think that's probably worth 95,000. Let's write an offer of 95,000. Your paycheck just went down. Right? It would be really cool if you could go, dude, I got a car payment. Let's offer 108 because I need the money. You can't do that. All right? Their interest is above yours. If you could do that, that'd be great. Offer $8 million. One commission this year, I'm done. I did a deal in 2010, highest single commission, $84,000. It's a good paycheck. You can get one of those. Get one of those a month, you're almost set. So they write the offer, and then you're called cooperating brokers. You cooperate to get this deal done, obviously maximizing your side of the table's benefit. My job is to maximize my side's benefit, okay? That's how the MLS system works. The MLS system, like we just kind of touched on a minute ago, there's an MLS for every board, and Indiana has multiple boards, and unless you're a member of that board, you can't see that MLS. That's where the open listing comes in helpful. If you've only joined my board, you can't see Bloomington. Or if you've joined Bloomington, you can't see Fort Wayne. You can go join those. There's a fee to join every one of them. And it's not a fee you want to pay. It's 50, 60 bucks a month per pop. All right? So typically, it's easier and cheaper to refer a client to one of those other boards so that you don't have to get involved and still get paid a referral fee. Okay? Any questions about MLSs? How they work? No? That's okay. It's not that hard, really. The hard part is collecting all the data. You know, we actually have forms for it now. So you can take a cheat sheet out with you and fill it in as you go. And, oh, I need the school system and this. And Bloomington does something different. Bloomington does what elementary they're in, what middle school they're in, and what high school they're in. We only do school system. We, being my board, only does, you're in the Franklin Township schools. They actually list every one of their schools, which one they do down there. So each MLS can be slightly different as well. And the layout really bugs me because you get used to seeing this layout in my board, and then it's a different layout like, you know, oh, the price is over here for Blue. So they have their own way of doing things, okay? How do we terminate a listing? Well, guess what? Follow my logic here. Very rare. The listing is created by the agency, right? Remember yesterday we talked about the 7 things that terminate an agency? It's the same 7 things that would terminate the listing, since the listing creates the agency. So the completion of the listing, i.e. you sell it, mutual release, death, breach of a contract. The last one, or the 7th one, is expiration. It is illegal in Indiana to have self-renewing listings. You cannot have a perpetual listing that self-renews itself. So it has to have a start date, and it has to have an end date. When that end date rolls around, you literally have to go out to your client and re-sign a new listing agreement, because it cannot say, oh, it's just going to renew for 3 more months, and then renew, and then renew. Can't do that. This gives the client the opportunity to do what I like to call the soft fire. They're going to fire you softly. Oh, it terminated? Oh, that's a shame. We're not going to relist because we're going to paint and do that. And the second you walk out the door, they're calling, hey, Chavez, can you come over and list this property? All right? So it allows the client to give you that soft down. No, we're not going to relist. School started, whatever reason, yada, yada, yada. Thank you. Call us later. Inside of the listing agreement, or the time frame, is this very special term called the buyer protection clause. The buyer protection clause on page 179. There is a very small window of opportunity for the cheating selling person that they could say, wow, my listing expires tomorrow, Mr. Seller, Mr. Buyer, don't put the offer in. Wait till Tuesday, and we don't have to pay an agent. Not that anybody would ever do that. So in order to protect us, there is a clause in the listing agreement called the broker protection clause. And the broker protection clause works like this. It says there is a blank in which you fill in a number. That number is decided upon by your managing broker, whatever they want. Could be 1,000,000 days, could be 1 day. Typically, I have noticed most protection clauses last as long as the initial listing period lasted. So if you put them on a 6-month listing, you would probably put 180 days as a protection clause. All right? Doesn't matter. So for this example, let's say we put in 60 days protection. We literally wrote 60 in one of those 27 pre-printed form blanks. And when we explained the listing to them, we explained this to them. And here's what it says. It says, for this many days past your expiration, anybody that would have been my client when it was listed is still my client after it expires. Clear as mud? So if you have an open house on Sunday and some guy walks in and says, oh, I love the house, what's the first question I ask the guy? Are you working with an agent? He says, nope, just started. Made up my mind this morning, going to buy a house. You say, great, come on in. I'm a limited agent, right? I'm holding the open house, so I'm the seller's person. He comes in, he's going to be the buyer. I'm going to be limited agent. And he says, great, I want to buy this property. Unfortunately, I got to go to the dentist. I'll call you in an hour. Monday, the house expires. Tuesday, he walks into your office and says, hey man, I'm sorry about that the other day, but they used gas and knocked me out. I was sick all day. But it's now Tuesday, I'm ready to buy. I got the cash sitting right here. Let's do the deal. Oops, house expired, right? Here's the broker protection clause. Because he would have been my client on Sunday, I was the procuring cause by holding the open house. For 60 days past their expiration, I still get to be the limited agent. I still get credit. So what I do is I call them back up and go, hey, I know your house expired yesterday and we did list it. Do you still want to sell? Because I got a guy sitting right here ready to buy. And if they say, well, sure, but you're not the listing agent now because it expired. No, 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 no. Nay, 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 nay. Au contraire. I get both sides still because it's within that 60-day broker protection clause because he was my client. All right? Now, contrast that with some other dude that just comes walking into my office on Tuesday, first time I ever met him. What's the first thing I ask him? Are you working with a client? He says, no, just want to buy today. I saw this house in Sunday's paper. It was beautiful. I want to buy it. I get the cash right now. He's not protected, right? Because he came to me after it expired. The broker protection clause only protects people that would have been my client if they'd have made the offer when it was listed. They just now have went outside of that time frame. So I get the credit for them. This new guy I don't get credit for. He's not under the protection clause. Just the first guy that came into the open house on Sunday, I was the procuring cause for him. Had an open house, talked to him, all of that. New guy, not. So I call the sellers, and I say, do you want to sell? And they say, yeah. I get credit for him. Unless one of two things happen. Unless they say, no, we've changed our mind, we're not selling. Okay, then the deal's done. All right? I lose both sides. Hey, we found out my husband's not getting transferred. We decided not to sell. Thank you very much. It was a good attempt, but we're not going to entertain the offer. Okay.
They should decide not to sell anytime they want to do it, right?
Yeah, they theoretically, but even though I got them on a protection clause, it doesn't matter because they're not selling. That's it. That's the point. Or they say this. Yes, we still want to sell. Matter of fact, we just signed with Sally, who just is driving out of the parking lot right now. Crap. That would also kill my listing protection because they have re-signed a new listing agreement with someone else. But am I totally dead in the water? Right. I'm not totally dead because at least he's the buyer. So I'm going to call Sally and go, hey, shortest listing you've ever had in your life. I've got the buyer right here. We'll send you an offer over right now. So the broker protection clause doesn't protect me if they've decided not to sell or they've relisted somewhere else. And it's irrelevant the number of days. I could put 1.8 million in. Doesn't matter if they sign 2 days later. It's gone. So broker protection only protects me if they want to sell, they haven't relisted, and it would have been my client during a normal listing.
Is it pretty common if you don't sell a home that your seller would go find a different agent? Or do you usually retain that?
Is it common that your seller finds a different agent? That is a whole based upon your relationship. And there are a lot, like I said, a lot of times they see that as a way to change agencies. You know, I don't think Raymond did a good job. I wasn't real happy with the clothes he wore every time he showed the house. I wasn't real happy he didn't. And here's where they get tied up. He didn't bring me any buyers. It's not my job. I'm the listing agent, but they don't know that. So they blame all that for me. So they say, oh, we're going to try this Remax. Let Remax do it. Or if you have a good relationship, they're like, yeah, let's renew. You brought plenty of buyers. We just couldn't find one that really was qualified, and yada, yada, yada. You've done a good job. Just let's relist for another 6 months. So I don't know. I don't know what the percentage is, but it can go either one of those two ways.